Good morning, everyone. If you can hear me, please send a thumbs up. Okay, thank you so much for honoring the invitation to this event. Yes, my name is Nakayendo Melissa. I am the Women in Tech champion at GDG Makere. Yes, GDG is the Google Developer Groups. Yes. So this is an event that is focusing on the topic of open source using Python. We are all excited to learn a lot from our speaker. Yes, I'm going to introduce her in a few, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what to expect in this event, from this event. Um, First of all of us here clearly have an interest in technology, and we would like to be part of the change that is coming, right? And we have different interests, but our major interest that has brought us together today is Python and what can be done using Python. Yes. So from this event, I just want you to know that our agenda is as follows. At 9:10, I'm making the introductions and then I'm going to welcome the guest. At 9:15, the guest speaker is going to start her presentation. And then at around 10:40, we will have a space for you to ask questions and she'll give you answers. Yes. And then our meeting will be adjourned at 11 a.m. Yes. So from today, you can expect to learn about what open source is and why it's such a transformative force in our tech world. We're also going to learn about how Python's open source community has become a platform for collaboration and learning and growth, especially for us, the women. Yeah. We're also going to learn about how we can each get involved, even if we're just starting out or looking to deepen our contributions to open source Python projects. Yes. So, our speaker for today is none other than Miss Monica from the PyLadies. Yes. Um, Monica.
Hi, Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, Monica, we can hear you.
No.
Hello, everyone. Please be a little patient. The presentation is about to start.
Good morning to you all. It's a pleasure to be joining you. I hope you can hear me clearly and well. Perfect. Thank you. I'll just share my video briefly. I hope you can see me. My name is Monica Iyabo. I am software developer and I also work and mentor at PyLadies Coach. At PyLadies Kampala, I am a coach and a mentor there. What we do at PyLadies is making sure that Python is spread and grows and becomes more taken up by more people, but especially with women. We want to grow the Python community. We want to grow the technology landscape in Kampala, in Uganda as a whole, by making sure people get into working with technology, using Python and open source. That is mostly what we do at PyLadies. And today I am going to talk more about open source and what you can do about it, what you can do with it, how you can get involved, and how you can get started using it as you especially as students, because Python is such an important language for us today that in everything that we do that has technology, you can definitely be able to use Python. So let me just share my presentation now. I'll take the video off. Melissa, could you just allow sharing on video? Sorry, on sharing on the call.
Monica, pardon? Did you ask something? I kind of didn't get you well.
Oh, I am unable to share. Could you please just allow me share my screen? All right, in the meantime, as Melissa is getting, how many of us have worked with Python before or done something in open source? Yes, Patricia. Patricia, you've worked with, you can unmute and just share what you've done with open source or Python.
Hello, everyone. Hello, the GDG team and Monica. I have worked with Python to build websites using the Django backend, and also I have also used it for data science. I've used it for data science as well.
Thank you. I saw someone else raise up their hand. They can just unmute and share. What have you done with Python, or have you worked with open source before?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Adeline. Yes.
I am Adeline Habimana. I haven't worked with open source before, but I have with Python. But mainly dealing with just a few projects to get familiar with it. Things like make terminal games and sorting algorithms, password generators, things of the sort, GUIs on desktop.
Nice.
Thank you.
So cool. You people are doing good things with Python already. Anyone else want to share? Melissa? In the meantime, as we wait for Melissa, open source
Monica,
is something. Yes, please.
share your screen now. Sorry.
Thank you. Are you able to see my screen now? Yes. So I welcome everyone to today's session. I thank you for taking time off your Saturday to come and join us and learn about open source, learn about Python, learn what we can do and how we can change, especially our world using Python. That is such a, especially in these times when everything is changing so fast, open source is such a pivotal, I would call it, way of life that gives everyone a chance to be a part of the things that are changing. So it gives you an opportunity to work and also do things and see the work that you have done as part of the change that is happening around. In AI, if you want to change the web development, if you want to change so much, you can use open source, but also Python gives you a very wide range of things that you can do and change as you want to work on everything. Like I have introduced myself. My name is Monica Iyabo. I'm a software engineer. I work with a company that is called DataCare. DataCare works on different types of softwares. We have an in-house ERP that is called Promise. On that Promise platform, we have HR, we have M&E systems, we have customer relationship managers, we have grants managers, we have so much more within that ERP, and that is mostly the work that I do, 9 to 5. I do PyLadies, I volunteer with them, I am a coach, and I am also a mentor. And a fun fact is I am a plant parent. So today we are going to talk about, I've already talked about what PyLadies is. We are an international mentorship group with focus on helping more women to become active participants and leaders in the Python open source community. We promote, educate, and advance diverse Python community through outreach, education, conferences, events, social gathering, and the aim is to provide a friendly support network for women and bridge a gap to the larger Python world. That is basically what PyLadies is for us. And mostly us as PyLadies Kampala, we are trying to do that, all this to promote Python within our Kampala community, within Ugandan communities, through conferences, through meetups, through the different initiatives that we do. PyLadies Kampala organizes a meetup every second Saturday of the month. So not next Saturday, the Saturday after next Saturday, we'll be having a meetup. And this year, our focus is to learn data science and machine learning. So everything that we'll be doing for the rest of the year will be all about machine learning. So we are starting with the basics of what we need for machine learning. Last month, we started with Git and all the basics for you to get ready, learning collaboration. Git is a collaboration tool, so we use that. This month, we are going to introduce next month, we are going to introduce Python for machine learning. So I hope you all come and join us on this journey so that by the end of the year, we have more women that have come that are skilled enough to do data science tasks and are able to go into the world and show out. That's PyLadies small in a nutshell. So we can look at open source. Earlier I asked if someone had participated in open source. I'm not sure if there's still someone who has done some open source before. I'll just go ahead. Open source software is code that is designed to be publicly accessible and anyone can see, modify, and distribute as they see fit. So there are two concepts that we can talk about. One is open source in itself, but then there's also the concept of open source software. So first, the open source. Open source is anything. Open source is anything that anyone has designed to be publicly accessible and anyone can see, modify, and distribute as they see fit. I don't know if any of you has seen Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of like the most commonest examples of open source. Wikipedia is not code in itself. And yes, it's a software somewhere. However, anyone can go to a Wikipedia page and edit anything that they want. In any way, you can go find someone's page and you're able to edit, change the text, change the facts that are in there. If someone has something that is wrong, you change it. And then if someone else feels that what you have edited is not right, they also come and edit it. So open source software also works in the same way. It is software code that is readily publicly available for anyone to access. You can go pick that software code, see what it looks like. If you want, you can modify it, but also you can distribute that code freely as you see fit within the bounds of a license. So software that is open source is also bound within some things that are called licenses. So different software companies, different licenses bind certain software in different ways. Today we are not going to look at those licenses, but these are the bullets below are just some ways that the open source institute defines open source. So for them, they defined open source as something that is free redistribution. You can get it and give it out to anyone the way you feel, as long as you can take it, you reuse it and redistribute to anyone else. That is free. That is one way of defining it, but also it has to be source code. It can be source code. Then it also defined that the works that are derived from open source code should also be open source. So let's say someone has created Python today, but also they create another version of Python. They should be able to make the versions of Python also open source. that is a derived work of open source. The integrity of the author's source code. Open source code should keep the integrity of the author's code. Integrity is something that does, when we define integrity in English, it's that something that does not change. So when you say, this is what I do, and this is how I do it, that is something sort of like your integrity. So if the author says my code does this, changing the integrity of it goes against the code of open source. Another thing that open source does, it's not discriminatory against persons or group. Your open source project cannot or should not discriminate against people. So you say, people from this side, for me, I've made an open source software somehow, but people from this side should not use it, or people that look like this are not able to use it. That goes against open source standards. No discrimination against fields of endeavor. So you create an open source software and you say, this field, maybe the mathematicians will never be able to use your code or should not be able to use your code because for them they are mathematicians. You're discriminating against a field. Distribution of license. So open source software should respect a certain license that it is under. So if it is, there are different types of licenses. There's GNU, there's MIT, and then there are lots of other types of licenses. And within those licenses, there are different terms and conditions. So you create your software under a certain license, and it should be distributed based on that kind of the terms and conditions that are specified in the license that you selected. The license that is selected should not be specific to a product. In this case is when you generate a license for your open source software, you should not make it say, my software should only work with a certain type of product. How do I call a product? So let's say you're working with Linux, you say my product should only work with Linux. That goes against the values of open source. Open source should be used with every product that is available. You probably say my product should only be used on MacBooks. That doesn't make it open source then. It goes against the values and the rules of open source. We should be able to use it the way on every product that is available without any discrimination or without it being put a stop to. It must also not restrict other software. If you create your open source software or something open source, it should not be working only. Let's say you will be saying, my thing will only work on Windows. If it works only on Windows, no, it is not open source in that way. It also should not restrict other software. If someone comes with something else and they want to connect to your open source application, the way we see Python works with everything and runs on anything. There are people that are running Python on very, very tiny devices. There are people that are running Python on very mega applications. That should be the way that an open source works, instead of it restricting other software. The same works as the license must be technology neutral. Don't make your application and say it should be dependent on this type of technology. What happens on the day when that technology is no longer available? Or someone comes and says, need this technology, I no longer want your things to run on it. That means your open source software doesn't work anymore. So making it technology neutral is a good thing for the open source software. So what are the benefits of having open source and open source software. First, we work with open source in such a way that it is a good thing for us in the community or as a society. Open source gives you the kind of freedom that you want to have and enjoy in any way. But as a society or as the software itself, it benefits a lot in terms of peer review. There's a thing about working or having a second eye that is so good and makes you become a better or do something better. So when I say peer review, that is a benefit. It means anyone in the world can look at your software, they can look at your code and say, this software or this line of code that you've written is not good enough, or they can highlight something like a security breach in your software and be like, no, that is going to cause for you a security vulnerability. Do it this way and change it this way. As opposed to software that is not open source. If it's not open source, no one knows about the mistakes that you have made in your code and you cannot improve it in that way. If someone does it in one way, it will be improved because other people are looking at it and there's more than one eye that is seeing it. The other thing is reliability. There's open source software is one of the most reliable softwares that we've had. You can look at something like Linux. Linux is running almost a lot of servers in the world today are running on Linux systems, but also look at languages like Python. Anyone can run or create anything on Python because they have the trust that it will not break or it will not come out, it will not do something weird for them because it is that reliable. And I believe that reliability that has come through is because of its being open source, the trust that people have in it. The other thing is transparency. Open source software is very transparent. Whatever is being done, you see that this has been done, this is being done, this has not been done, but why has it not been done? There is very transparent, unlike other organizations that create software and no one knows about what is happening, no one knows anything on it. Then flexibility. We have a lot of changes that come in and someone will propose a change on something and say, this is not working for Python today. And that change will be taken in because, yes, that is what we are doing. We are seeking to improve the software, and that kind of flexibility is good for the open source software. It makes it better, makes it bigger every time. Then open collaboration. Open collaboration is you're working with people from different sectors. So for the case of Python, open collaboration, I'm sure Python is very widely trusted for AI and data science today because of the open collaboration and trying to fit in the needs of the industry that is not new, but that is more gaining popularity now because they fit into their needs. That open collaboration allows for someone to say that today, Python does not do this well. When I run it with a data science project, it will not work well. What if we do it like this so that it is well suited for the other applications that are there? And then sustainability. Sustainability in terms of even if you're not around, you as the creator of the software, your software can go and grow and live without you. Or it can continue to stay because it has the input of other people from the community, other people from elsewhere. Then control. You can control through the communities and through others because it's open. You know when you have the warning signs, your people can warn you that what you're doing today is not right, it's not going to work, or this that you're doing is not a good way to do. But also open source software is a good place to gain skills and to train. I don't know how many people have gained a lot of work and a lot of jobs because they've contributed to open source or because they work in open source. And I am one of those people because of the work that I do at PyLadies Kampala. I have jobs and I have skills. The amount of skills that I get from the events that we do, from just basically being able to work with an open source software is a good thing. There are so many other people, so many opportunities. There are internships, there are jobs. You contribute to a software, to an open source software, and people are always there looking out for talent, for people. The PyCon Uganda chairperson for last year, 2024, Hassan, created a data, I think it's a data plot9. It's a library for data science, but he says he has gotten jobs from people who would have never met him, people who he would have never met because of just the open source library that he created. And that's a good thing that we all can. Open source software are very secure, and if you want to look at things about security, one of the most secure systems in the world is Linux, and it's open source, so that is a good thing. Then the community, open source gives you a sense of community. How many people belong to a community? They are so when you get into working with people, those people become, first of all, your friends, those people that you're working with on that software. Besides becoming your friends, some even become family as you work with them. And it's a good thing for us as a society to have some sense of community. We are all longing for a belonging and somewhere that we can be. Imagine doing work, but you work with people that you actually like over a common goal and you're solving problems. That's a good thing. Open source provides jobs and internships to everyone, to most people. There's the outreach internships. I think there's also the Google Summer of Code. There are a lot of other opportunities that are available in open source, and that is a good thing for us to have as people that are seeking to grow our skills in technology and looking at open source. There are so many other benefits that I can't finish. So what does an open source project look like for someone who just wants to see what it is, where it is like? First, an open source project starts with an idea, and that idea starts with someone. So let's say today you're there and you want to solve a certain problem. That problem that you're trying to solve can be anything that you want to use technology to solve, probably, because today we are using technology. So you sit there and you're like, I want to create a virtual library for Makerere. That becomes your problem. So you're the person that has birthed the idea or that has created that project. You are called an author. You will start the project and you become the author of the project. Then there is also an owner, is a person who has administrative ownership over the organization or a repository that is hosting that idea that you created. So let's say most open source projects are hosted on GitHub. So on GitHub, there is an author, the person that writes it. Then there's an organization. So you probably have created your idea, but you're too busy to manage it. Or probably you are a boss somewhere, so you don't have time for that. So you create some kind of administrator, or you create an organization for yourself on GitHub, and that organization does the managing for your open source project. Then we have maintainers. Maintainers are contributors who are responsible for driving the direction or the vision of the organization. The author can also be a maintainer. The author can also be the owner. The maintainer can also be the owners of the project. Maybe you have your company and you are a group of 4 people. You're the author, you're the owner, and you also are the maintainer. That is how most open source projects begin. The owner, the author, the maintainer are all the same person in most cases, because you're one person in this case. Then as the project grows, you entice other people to come and contribute. Those are the people that we are calling contributors. So you created your idea, but your friend also wants to have certain input on your open source project. Your friend now becomes a contributor. And then we have community members. Community members are people that use the project. These might be people that you've created your library and it is open. Then there are people that are trying to use it. Those people are probably, let's say, students, they are lecturers, those are your community members. Community members can also include the contributors and the maintainers as well, but that is a small overview of what an open source project looks like. As it grows, they become more, it becomes wider. There are so many other things that are involved in it, but basically these are the main ones that will always be in every open source project that you have around. So what you need to know before you begin an open source project or an open source software. You want to create an open source software, you want to create an open source project. This because one of the most or the basic knowledge that you need to know is version control. Version control, Git, and then other types of version control. You will need that because collaboration is very important. It is important for you to put your code or to show your code elsewhere or to the outside. That way, other people are able to see what you're working on, and they can also be able to contribute to what you're working on. So version control is a good thing and is a good skill to have. Some people use VCS, some people use Git. That is one of the knowledge or the basic skills that you should have. And then you also have to have GitHub. Other people have other hosting platforms for their code, but GitHub is preferred because it is free and it is open source. Other hosting platforms are not free unless you have another hosting platform that is not Git but is open and accessible for anyone, for your source code to be open source. It's okay. Then you have to have very good communication for your open source project to work. There are a lot of very good software out there, but no one knows about it because either the communication is not good or the way the software is done is not good. We know about a lot of the softwares that we have. For example, something like Django. Django is a very well-written language that you go and look at it and you look at the documentation and you follow the English. It's simple. Something like that attracts people to your open source project. So you need to communicate well to your community, but also communicate what problem you're solving for the world to know what your project is all about. Then another thing is something that we call issues. Issues is like, I should call it a change log, but you're trying to solve a problem. But in that problem, when someone tries out your software, they should be able to add a contribution, and that small contribution that they are doing or they are adding. So let's say someone has looked at your software and they're saying, for me, I want to add a page that does this and this. That is an issue. And every open source software open source code should have an issues log or a place where those issues are logged for people to know that this is what you can work on when you come here. This is what our pain points are so far. We are looking for people to work on this. We are looking for people to do this. The other thing that you need to do and learn, it's a lot related to pull requests. To Git and GitHub, it's pull requests. To have or to be able to contribute to an open source project, you need to have skills about version control. And one of those skills is knowing about pull requests and creating pull requests, because when you use version control, you can push and pull your code and then share with other people without it coming to the source to mix with, without it being managed by someone else. But for open source software, you need some sort of control so that you know that no one is pushing just any kind of rubbish. And that kind of control that is happening in open source is managed through pull requests. So let's say today, Patricia looked at a certain piece of code, which is open source. She did the things that she did, and then now she wants to push it back so that it is integrated into the actual main software. If there is no way for that merging to be controlled, it will be a problem on the result of the software. So that kind of control and that kind of step that first puts a check on whether is it good enough to be pulled and pushed and added to this, we use pull requests to do that. So we looked at the benefits of open source itself, but here we are going to look at the benefits of contributing to open source. You as a person that wants to work on an open source software, or you want to do something in open source, it doesn't have to be software, it will improve your skills. It improves the software that you rely on mostly, because you see a problem and this is not working, you want to make it better. I'll give an example of, I don't know if there's someone old enough on this call who knows Windows XP. Windows XP had a movie player, but that movie player could not play things like MP4s, did not play, if you had anything that had a weird extension, it could not play it. However, on the other side, we have always had VLC Media Player. And VLC Media Player is an open source tool. It looked at the problems that the Windows Media Player didn't have, and it sought to solve all those problems. So the VLC that we have and love today plays anything and anyone, but it's mostly because people looked at what Windows Media Player didn't have, and they sought to improve that media player by working on the problems that they were seeing on this side. So we end up with a very good media player, DLC, because we are having a problem and we can't play our movies, we can't play our videos, but we have this one here that we can work on and improve as a community. Then you come together and work to improve the software that you want to rely on. Open source will help you improve your existing skills. And I don't care if you are a beginner, if you don't know anything, if you don't know any technology. The moment you come into open source, if you are a designer, your skills will improve. If you are a community organizer, your skills will improve. If you are a software developer, your skills will improve. If you are a technical writer, your skills will improve. Open source will stretch you, but it stretches you in a good way that you become better at anything that you are working on that is open on the open source project. So you learn a lot, you learn things about GitHub, you learn things about Git. For you to be able to actually work on that software, you need to get it from Git. So if you don't know what Git is, you don't know what GitHub is, you have to first go back and learn about Git, and then you come back and you're able to pull that software. You've already improved yourself because you started without knowing this skill, but now you know how to do it. And by the time you leave an open source project, you do not come out the way you came in. That's one good thing. You meet people that are interested in similar things. So you come onto a project and you're trying to learn, or you're trying to, or there's something, some skill that you really want to do and you want to enjoy. There are people that work on gaming software. You come and you find people that are also interested in things that you like. In that way, you're building community, but also you're improving yourselves. You're doing a lot of things together. There's nothing as good as finding people that are like the things that you like. You feel like, wow, I have met the people that I want. Open source also provides you an opportunity to meet mentors and to teach others. The people that you will find, the contributors on a project, will always mentor new people. They want to improve their software in such a way that they don't want to be the ones that are the only ones whose ideas have come. There's a lot of good faith and good, what we call good hearts in Uganda. People say, I want to do something good to someone else so that they also. So you always find that kind of feeling in open source. People are mentoring you, do it like this, do it this, if you did it this way. So you find you got one issue and you have solved it a certain way, and someone is there telling you, no, if you try it this way, it's going to work better and you'll improve performance. Someone is mentoring you in performance things that you didn't know about at the time you were writing your small change in the software. But also it gives opportunity for you to teach others. You already know how to do something. You find a way to teach others also how to do it. The other thing is you build artifacts that help you grow a reputation. I don't know, some of the most popular software people today are open source contributors. I don't know if any of you have heard of Joanna Nanjeche. Joanna Nanjeche started PyLadies in 2017 in Kampala, but now she works on open source. She works on the core Python. She's a core Python developer. And she has built such a reputation that when you mention her name in the Python community, people know her. That is what you do for yourself. That when you have done something in open source, your name is permanently associated with that contribution that you have made. So you've seen how, I hope you have seen that when you go to GitHub, they say contributors to this project. Your name will always be associated with that, and it is public knowledge. So if someone ever wants to know, say, what have you done before? You just tell them, go check this software. Me, I have contributed to that software. There's no lying. There's nothing for you to hide. It's always public for you. You first of all have a reputation for working on it. It doesn't even matter if for you went and just added a small line in documentation, changed is to are. That's it. You're already associated with that, and your reputation in that way grows. Because you're always working with new people, you learn people skills. The people that are in open source are not in one location. You'll not say, me, I am going to work with my classmates or my course-mates. You're going to find someone, you're going to work on a project that is in China, and you have to learn how to communicate with someone who is Chinese, who does not know any English. And in the end, the moment you make it work, you have learned a people skill that is so valuable that in the market today, there's a very high demand for people that can work with others, people that can work in teams, people that know how to talk to other people, associate and do different things with others. Despite you can be very technical, that you know your things, but you do not have people skills, that does not last very long in the job market. You need to know how to talk to people and associate with them. How do you contribute in open source? There are so many ways for you to contribute in open source. It's not just through code. Planning events. We have meetups every month. Someone that does the planning for that event is contributing to open source, but is also contributing to Python directly, because in that way we are growing the Python community, we are adding more members, but we are also teaching people how to use Python. That is, you're growing, you're contributing to open source through planning an event. Last year in November, we held at PyLadies, we held an event, and one of the keynote speakers was a designer at URA, and she told us about how design is used in open source and how we get all those design UI UX people. You contribute to open source in that way. The other more important thing, every software needs a document. It needs where people can see the documentation from, but also not just the documentation. It needs people to write about how to use that software. So you will see articles of how to learn Python, how to do this, how to create your first web page, your first web application with Django. That is all writing. And that is another way that you can contribute to open source. If you're writing about Python, if you're writing about software, if you're writing about a certain type of open source technology, you are contributing to open source. Excuse me. The other way is organizing. Organizing in terms of organizing conferences, organizing just communities to come together and you share about a certain open source technology that you all love and want to work with together. It is always good that you come, we said you gain a certain type of community when you are in open source. That community, if it is not always active and doing something, it can die out very easily. So the way that you keep that community and keep it lively, you keep people using your software is through organizing. Then the definite way that you can also contribute to open source is through code. You add your code to whatever is working, then you improve it and make it better for other people. Then you can contribute to open source through helping in community. If there are people that don't know how to use the open source technology that you're having, you help those people learn how to use it. That is also your way of contributing to open source. I think we've come to the end of my presentation. we still have time, I'd like to demonstrate a little bit about how someone can go about trying to contribute to a software application. But first, we can share some questions. I'm sorry, Melissa, I'm going to ask a bit of questions now so that when we move to the demonstration, we don't go with someone having certain questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead. Yes, Emily, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Monique, for the great presentation. I'm called to see my Emily Queen, doing computer science at Makerere University. So my question is, how do I know the project that is up on open source and that needs my contribution? How do I find such projects?
Thank you very much, Emily. So usually, I want to say that you start by, you could start by saying, doing a Google search of open source projects, just a simple Google search. It will always come up with any results. And all the results on that project will be good enough for you to contribute to. But on the results that come, how do you know that this is what I can actually work on, especially if you are a new person? When I shared something, I talked about issues. You find the issues log. On any project that you go to that is an open source project, it is good for you to go to an issues log. That issues log will always show you, will always have good first issue, beginner friendly. They have tags on them. And that is what you can use for you to be able to contribute or to learn about the project. It's something that we are going to do, and I'm going to show you. The project that we are going to work on is Pandas. I don't know if we've all heard about Pandas. Pandas is a library for data science and for just data. If you want to work on your data and ask questions about it, share with it, the Pandas library is your go-to place. Let me first stop sharing. Oh, just a minute, let me get my child. All right. So, Emily, I'm not going to entirely answer you completely, but we are going to look at this and look at the demonstration that we are going to have, and then we'll see how you can get to know what you can work on. In the meantime, do you have anyone else with a question?
Monica, someone put something in the chat.
Thank you. Let me check it. Melissa, could you please kindly read it for me?
I hope you can still hear me.
The person asked, can boys attend PyLadies Event?
Yes, I can. Oh, can boys attend PyLadies Event? everyone is welcome to attend a PyLadies event because our goal is to grow the community. And also we do not, despite us wanting to grow the women's community, we also know that anyone benefits from the knowledge that is shared there. We have speakers that are not women that come, so also the attendees that are not women are very welcome to our events. So on GitHub, this is for Emily, every project that is public is an open source project. I hope that is making sense. So on GitHub, you can have either a private or a public project. When you choose your project to be, you create it as a public project. That means it is open for anyone to look at, it is open for anyone to copy, and it is open for anyone to distribute as they see fit. So that is an open source project. If you went to GitHub today and created a repository and made it public, it is open and it is open source. Me, when I come, I look for you and I see your public repositories and I'm like, this one, I like it. Let me copy it. If you don't want your project to be open source, you make it private. So now we are going to look at this pandas library. For every project or any projects that you have on GitHub. All right, Tugume. For every project that we have on GitHub, we will always, it is good to have a README file. A README file is where you put the communication that talks about your project. I'm sure here they also have a README file, which is at the bottom. This is it. The README file is like the first place anyone that wants to know about your software goes to. So this one is the README about Pandas. Pandas, Powerful Python Data Analysis Toolkit. What is it? And then they talk about briefly what is there and how big, because this is a very big library. You have a lot of documentation for it. So there are even sections for you to where to go, this is what you do, this is what you need, but all the information that you need to work with that software can be contained in your README file. So this one talks about the features, the installation, different ways to get on it. But today what we are very interested in is going to be contributing to Pandas. And when I talked about communication as being one of the things you need for your open source project, this is what I meant. Your open source project should be able to talk about everything that you need. So I'm looking for a way to contribute to Pandas, and they already have a section here that talks about contributing to Pandas. So the rest here talks about things, but I don't need to know about them because what I want today is how to contribute to Pandas. So we go to contributing to Pandas and we look at the document and what it is saying. A good open source project should have a contributing guide. A contributing guide is just a guide for someone who is coming, someone who is new, who does not know how or where to start from. What do I do? Where do I go? Where am I supposed to start from. Basically, that is your contributing guide. However, for you to be able to also contribute, I talked about communication from the maintainers of the project and the owners, but also you as a person that wants to contribute to open source. You're going to have to be very patient. You're going to have to be a very good reader and pay attention to detail, because these people have a lot of work. They do not have a lot of time to come and handpick you and pull your hands and say, come, this is how we are going to contribute, you as an individual. They are going to put all the information that you need somewhere. And it is your job as the person that wants to contribute to find that information and use it and be able to also contribute to that application. So if the maintainers have done their work of writing contribution guides, it doesn't make sense for you to find the maintainer and ask them, how do I contribute again? So that's why we have a contributing guide here. All contributions, bug reports, documentation, improvements, and ideas are welcome. They have a detailed report on a detailed attribute. If you're looking to start working with pandas, go to the issues tab and start looking at the interesting issues. There are a number of issues in the documents, and they have good first issue where someone starts out. So that is the first thing that you look out for. You go to the issues and you see what is it that you have that is a good first issue. Good first issue, because that way it helps you get familiar with the whole software that you want to work with. How do you download it and get it onto your computer? How do you run it? And all those things. That is what I was talking about, you learning. Every open source project teaches you a lot because they all do not run the same way. So someone is going to ask you, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this before it is able to run. Make sure this is installed. Make sure this is working. Make sure you have this on your computer for you to be able to run this application. So now that we've looked at this, let's go to the contributing guide and just have an overview of what is there on the contributing guide. Oh, sorry. Okay. So the contributing guide will always give you everything about how to run the computer, how to run the application, what you need, more like teaching you what you have to do for you to get started. We are not going to go through everything here. So you have bug reports, enhancements, finding an issue to contribute to, contributing to documented different. I said we could contribute in different ways, but when you come to GitHub, you're either contributing to the code or you're contributing to the documentation. So here they are giving us a guide on how to contribute to documentation and how to contribute to the code base. And then we also have something about submitting a pull request, how you submit a pull request, then the version control that you need. All this, you'd have to read it, because if you read it, then you're setting yourself up to get ready to make your contribution. The other thing I want to talk about also is that most of these open source projects have community forum. If it's plural, it's forum. They have community forum. Other people have it on Slack. Other people have it on different platforms. Others have it on Discord. So you read the contributing guide, and I'm sure somewhere they'll give you a way to connect with the rest of the community. That way, you're able now to connect with the people that are working on the branch, and that is where you're going to find your community properly. But in the contributing guide, you will know now that I have gotten to this project, how do I get it on my own local machine that is written for you in the contributing guide. Then you know now, after I have gotten this project on my machine, what's next? What is next is you find an issue. When you find that issue, you're able to work, and if you're able to work on that issue, how next do I continue after here? I've finished my issue. In the contribution guide, you come back, I'm sure you'll find a place where you can push your code, then merge the record. If you don't find a way for you to do the pushing and then the polling for your code, that is why you need the community. The other side, you ask questions there, and when your questions are answered in that place, you're able to know what to do from there. That's where people connect. You'll find people that are teaching you. If you also get better, that is where you start teaching other people how to also contribute from within the community. Let's go back to the issues on GitHub and just look at a few issues that we need. So on GitHub, we have this place that has code, but we also have this part that has issues. I hope you can all see it. This is what I am talking about, the issues. For pandas, they have 3,000, over 3,000 issues that need to be worked on. So you see how much work needs to be done. Pandas is such a popular library that almost everyone is using. And that is why probably they also have so many issues, because people are using it like that. So they are finding things that they need to improve every day. We want to do this, we want to change that, we want to change this, or this is not working for me. I need to find a way to make it work. So we'll look at the issues. Here you want to contribute. They're just giving a guideline. We've already looked at that. Then on the left, there is open issues and there is closed issues. Closed means it has already been worked on, so there is no need. If it is open, it means now they need help for someone to work on, for someone to work on it. They told us that one of the good first issues was documents, or good first issues, working on a document. So we have one here that has a tag or a label that has docs on it. This docs, no warning, set in index, that index column is removed. So that is one issue that we could probably work with and see, because it is a document related issue. There's no need for you to do code on it. You're probably just going to change. They are calling it a warning set. So probably you just need to change a warning text and then move it and make it look different in another place. That's all you need to do in that documentation, in that document. Just change the text here and there, and you're good to go. You have contributed to open source. In fact, you have not contributed to any open source. You have contributed to the Pandas library. Yes, just that. And you become a pro, you go giving talks and telling people that you're able to, for you've contributed to open source, which is true because you would have contributed to open source. Let's look at a few good first issues. Where do we get the labels from? The labels are here. No, here, sorry. We look at the labels and then we do a filter by Git good first issue. Just reduce them. So we have good first issue. So all these issues that are here are very good for someone that is a beginner to start with. When you want to contribute, you just pick one, follow the contribution guidelines, and you're able to go to it, and then you try and fix it. So I want to pick one. I don't know which one we can vote on. Okay, I see something quite simple here. Simplify pandas theme footer. So when you click on an issue itself there, it takes you to a page where the details about that issue have been given. So here they are talking about the actual detail of the problem. The other one was just a title. Now this one is the actual detail, the theme, the Sphinx. Sphinx is a language. Should I call it a language? It's a Python library that is used for writing documentation for most applications. So you'll find that for most of the open source software, they write documentation. It renders the documentation into a web page Sphinx. So what you see as a web page, like document web page, has been rendered through or rendered using Sphinx. And for you to learn how to use Sphinx now, it's more like HTML, but with Python in it in some way. So you're actually changing documentation using this Sphinx library or something like that, and you're able to create normal web pages, but with Sphinx. It's not hard to do or to configure. Just having a little Python knowledge and enough HTML knowledge is good for you, and you're good to go. Can we try out this? Yes, I think. So now that we have seen what our issue is, simplify docs. Copy it. Let's go back to the GitHub repo, to the code itself. And see how we can start our open source contribution. We've identified an issue that we are going to work on. We have our project, which is the open source project that we are going to work with. Now, the next thing for us is to know what to do. For most open source projects, I'm sure in the contribution guide, there's something about forking. Forking is a Git workflow where instead of you pushing directly to the pandas library, to the pandas repo, you get that pandas repo, and then you first copy it to your GitHub, your own GitHub account, and then from there, you're able to work with your GitHub version. It's like as if you're making a copy of the pandas library and putting it into your GitHub account. And then from that GitHub, from your GitHub, that is where you can work from. I don't know if it makes sense. I hope it does. So you copy, we are going to copy these pandas to my account, which we'll call a fork. So forking my own copy. You come to fork. So now I am creating that pandas copy on my machine, which will be Monica pandas. And that's okay. Then I create a fork. Select an owner. Oh, I already have a fork of this pandas, so I don't need it already. Let me just go back. My repositories. So I have already my pandas library. Are we able to see that? Since I already have it, I don't know if you all know about how to clone your repo, then you take it to, you get it and put it on your local machine. If someone knows how to do it, a thumbs up, please. I take it that people know how to clone and put on their machine. So when you have cloned your repo, I'm not going to demonstrate how to clone and then how to push and clone and then do everything. If you have already done that, there's something here that says contribute. Contribute is where you come now when you have made your changes and added them. I don't have any change that I have made so far on my branch. However, if you have a change on it, it would ask you contribute. Then for you to contribute, it would either say merge or create a pull request, which way you would have to say creating a pull request. Pull request now you would be asking for permission. Let me get another. No. You would be telling the branch that you forked from, which is the main pandas account, telling them that I have made my changes here. Now I want you to merge my changes. It's like as if asking for permission for your changes to be added to the actual branch of pandas that we have that is available. If you ask for that permission through a pull request, we shall go back.
Hello everyone. I think Monica is facing a few technical difficulties. Let's give her a moment to join back in.
Apologies, I went off. Now we are back to the pandas actual accounts or the pandas actual repository, and we are going to look at the pull requests that people have made changes on. So basically, most people that have already made different changes on different bugs, these are their pull requests for them. They've already done their parts and they've made their contribution. So now they are waiting for what we called a maintainer to look at their code. We said an open source project can have an author, an owner, and a maintainer. In this case, when we get to the owner, can be even a company. You, the person that had the idea, you created it. But now the owner of the repository is probably a company. But now we also need the maintainers. Maintainers are people now that have permission sometimes to actually allow code to be added to this repository or to reject it. So when your code is at this level, it means now the maintainers are going to look at it. And when they look at it, they are able to check, have you met their conditions for how the code should look like. In the contributing guide, you will find things like the code should be tested properly before it is added. The code should be done, should look like this. This is how our indentation should be equal to. So for Python, some people use tabs, other people use spaces. So in the contributing guide, you'll find all those guidelines of how you do. So if you push your code and the guideline was saying that for us, we use a space instead of a tab, you will not be able to, they will not be able to merge your code because you have not followed, despite everything working in your code, but because you've not followed a certain guideline that for them they are using, you're not going to be able to have your code merged. That is important because they need some kind of control on how code is written and uniformity so that everyone that writes code does something that is in the guideline. Code should be tested, code should be indented this way, this should be added in your code, this is how you should create your pull requests. That is why it is important for you to read through the contribution guide properly and pay attention in everything that is added on it. If you don't understand anything in the forum, the communication forum that is there, ask questions and people will be always willing to help and to answer questions on your behalf for something like that. So we see some here have X and others have a tick on it. So usually your pull requests, after you have made a pull request the other side, it comes here. When your code is merged or when there's a comment and they need you to improve something, it will always be added for you in your reply within the pull request here. I think I've finished most of my demonstration and over to you, Melissa.
All right. Thank you so much, Monica, for the very, very educative presentation that you've given us. It's now time for the Q&A. Though people have been asking questions throughout the session, there's one question. Someone asked you to kindly talk about the licenses that we can attach to a GitHub project. Yeah, a little briefly.
So I don't know much about the details of the licensing, but I know some licenses and probably I'll just talk about a small overview of what it is like. So you'll find that there's an open source license that allows you to distribute the code the way you want it, and always your code should be free forever, no matter what. And then you'll find that there's another license that talks about your code and the company that gave you the license, that says that when you reach that point of selling part of your code, we also need to benefit from it, the license givers of your open source license. And then there is also another license that will probably specify that we need to take like a certain patent, a certain part in the open source software that you have created. So let's say you created and added them as your open source licensing company or organization, and then they want a certain percentage of your code. So always, whatever you build on it, for them, they will always own, let's say, half of it. That's too much, but I'm just using an analogy. So different licenses will always speak in that form. So it's important for you as an open source contributor, before you attach a license to your open source project, read about the openly available licenses and what their conditions are and what they mean. There are so many licenses that are available outside there. I can't really finish all of them. There's GNU, there's IBM, there's MIT, there's BSD. All of them mean so much different things. So before you create your project today, and yet you reach a point you want to do something with your project, you want to move it to another level, to move it to the next level, then your license that you selected as when you are creating your open source application stops you from moving to that next level, because the conditions in it do not allow you. So different licenses have different conditions in them. I may not be aware of all of them specifically, so I can't speak much into that. I hope that answers. I think it was Keith who asked that question.
Okay, and Monica, I also have a question of my own.
Yes.
Are there any projects that you feel that we could start to contribute to? Yeah, that you are working on, or that you would want people to join you on? Yeah.
At the moment, the project that I am working on is a little bit, has very scanty documentation. It is called Kobo Toolbox. Kobo Toolbox is a survey tool that is used it has an application that people use for surveys. Most organizations here, if you're going to field in the village, they are using Kobo Toolbox. It has a web application, but it also has a mobile app where people use to enter data. So yeah, that is the one that I am working on. I'm not sure if anyone would be interested in working on it, but there are a lot of very good projects out there. I selected Pandas today because it is something that everyone who is doing anything in data science is using. And it's a very good project for you to start working on for someone who wants to really, really get into open source. And the thing about most open source projects that you will find, they will always have the same thing, that I want people to start at least contributing to documentation. Documentation, the thing that is going to stretch you a little bit is just that weird Sphinx library. But the moment you get over the Sphinx library, you are good to go. And that way, it doesn't matter what project you're going to work on, as long as there is documentation on it, you will find. The other good project to contribute to is Django. Django is very well written, but they also have a very wide community of people that are willing to teach, to help others contribute to it. So if you can try out the Django repo and then work on it. It will be very, very good for you to documentation, but there are also very good fast issues that are simple for you. Most people have used Django, so it will be easy for you to find your way around it. Does that answer your question, Melissa? Oh, also, I think Oscar Kampala has very good open source projects that you can look at from local Ugandans. You can find them on their Oscar Kampala WhatsApp group. The creators themselves, you can ask them questions physically and you'll be good. I think the organization, to find projects there, you find Oscar and then you'll be able to contribute to those projects there as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Monica. And lastly, my last question is, how could we communicate with you? Could you share maybe an email that we can use to reach out to you? Yeah.
I forgot to add that to my slides. My email is monica@gmail for the students. If you see anything that is talking about open source, do this somewhere, take up those opportunities, because if you don't take them up, the Nigerians are going to take them up.
Okay. Monica, there is one last question in the chat. Someone is asking how
is I'm not sure how you can, I don't know. Running at higher could probably, I don't have access to them, to leaders like that yet, but he can probably share how to get in touch with them. That's all I can say, but you can find them. I think they have an Oscar is OSCA, Oscar Kampala. They might be having an X online, but I can think of is Tobias. I don't know if you've heard of him or if he has come. Tobias, you can probably get in touch with him. You can probably get in touch with him, and then he will be able to into the WhatsApp group.
Okay, thank you so much, Monica. I don't know if Ronnie is still on the call. Ronnie, Ronnie, are you still available? Okay. Okay, Ronnie, could you information on how to join the Oscar Kampala group?
Oh, Melissa, if there are ladies that have not joined the PyLadies community on WhatsApp, they can get in. You can get in touch ladies community on WhatsApp. You can get in touch group.
Oh, okay.